The new norm has truly become people buying things now, like sneakers, and paying for them later. And I don't mean with, a credit card, because paying with a debit card would be you paying right now. No, I don't mean paying with a credit card even. And people are still doing that irresponsibly. Let's just be clear. If you are literally paying interest on an item, then you're hustling backwards. Congratulations, you just made the bank money and cost yourself money. I don't even mean that. I mean buy now, pay later. They're everywhere. It started out with a few, and now it just seems endless. On any single retailer's page you go on, that is like the first thing that pops up. It's the cookies pop notification that comes up, and then it has to do with maybe you'll get 10 to 15% off your very first purchase if you sign up for SMS messaging. But no, beyond that, it has to do with buy now, pay later. I mean, really, what are all the options? Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay, Sezzle. Now you can do PayPal and Apple and ShopPay, and it goes on and on and on to the point where credit card companies also jumped into the mix because they were feeling left behind, as if they already don't have a chokehold, a very strong chokehold on the American people right now with the amount of credit card debt that's floating around. It's like the average household has $5,000 in credit card debt. That is scary beyond measure. I couldn't fathom that. I just need to throw it out there. I could not. And this is not to say that people don't fall on hard times and things occur. That's why an emergency fund is so important. So on top of whatever you're facing, whatever emergency is happening or not, also now adding on high interest debt to it. Because the average person has at least 15 to 25 or north of that % in interest they have to pay for any balance that is carried over. And buy now, pay later has really just ushered in this new wave, this new acceptance of I want it and need it right now. So the hell with delayed gratification. They're going to give me the opportunity to get it. I'll worry about the payments later. It's a really dangerous trend, especially for young adults. They're just entering the world and they're finally navigating what it means to be an adult. And you have to tell yourself no from time to time, more often than you may like to tell yourself no. And even if you are able to pay for something, you also need to not be willing to do that all of the time. Delayed gratification is it's really something I wish they focused on in school, but they don't, because that would actually serve a purpose, unlike the Pythagorean theorem that we were all forced to learn in school. Retailers know exactly what they're doing. I don't care which retailer it may be. Listen, Foot Locker, Finish Line, all of them, they know exactly what they're doing. 3 years ago in 2019, I spoke about this in relation to StockX and GOAT offering Affirm and Afterpay as a means for you to purchase sneakers and items listed on their platforms. And even then, you know what? I was spot on. My feelings towards that haven't changed. It hasn't. I think it's very risky. I think it's certainly targeting consumers, especially younger consumers who want something right now, to spend more than they actually have and are able to spend. And it perpetuates this cycle of being on the hook for something. And that's exactly what happens. These retailers now have people on the hook. Well, actually, no. The service provider, the buy now, pay later service provider, they have you on the hook. Technically, they're on the hook to the banks that are backing and funding them. The retailer is at a loss for nothing because guess what? They're paid up front right away. You buy that sneaker through them, they're paid right away up front. Do you guys remember when, I believe it was I'm going to put this Jordan 1 on the screen. Do you remember when this Jordan 1 dropped? The running joke, at least for myself, whenever I saw it, I really started to think of it as like the Klarna 1, because I remember there were ads and discounts being ran if you used a buy now, pay later service. If you paid in full, you would get a discount on these shoes. And then I saw the memes going around, or the tweets that like, I'm not arguing with anybody who has 4 payments on their sneakers. And no, low key, like I will start to maybe question some of the judgment there, only because, listen, for some people, will buy now, pay later work? It can. Here's the kicker. Most people that even utilize credit cards, right? Most people that utilize any line of credit, they're not really responsible. If you think they are, we would not be in the position we're in within this country when it comes to credit card debt. We wouldn't be in the position we're in if people were responsible and didn't carry a balance month to month to month. We would not be where we are. Now, when it comes to sneakers, the fact that it's a game of all ages, so I can't say it's a young person's game, because young and old enter the game of sneakers. But young adults, I think, are more detached from the reality of what if a crisis hits and you're now in a very inopportune position to make good on all the debts that you have. And there's an amazing article that I found, I believe CNBC. So I just want to point out some of the really great points made in this article. And they highlight from the start some of the red flags that come along with this. So they said if mismanaged or overused, buy now, pay later services can lead to drastic consequences on a young consumer's already delicate financial wellness. When you're just starting out, you don't have a firm footing. If you're blessed and lucky enough, or maybe your family has set you up to have that, awesome. If you are just a very diligent, responsible young adult and you're seeking out information like this or on other platforms by other creators to really put you in the best position to win with money, first off, you're far ahead than your peers, and I really commend you there. So again, they also discuss when it's a good idea, or maybe when it's okay to use a buy now, pay later form of payment for anything you may want. This can be in relation to sneakers, again, or anything. Understanding where you are financially is very important. If you're someone who is already responsible with credit cards and you may choose, for whatever reason it may be, to use one of these service providers, then fine, but it needs to be done in a very responsible way. And most people just won't do that. That's just the thing. And most people aren't going to do that. And I remember we were all curious, or at least I was when it came out, like, wait a minute, so you buy now, like you pay a quarter of it, like clearly they can't send you a quarter of the item, so what happened? So if you guys remember, like I went ahead and used Klarna in a video, I think for a minimal pickup, just to figure out how it works. So they send you the item and then you really do pay in full. But here's the thing that's just very important, okay? Consider a true emergency pops up, but also one of those payments pops up. And what if you're somebody that has now stacked those payments one after the other, after the other, after the other? This is what they talk about. What happens if you can't afford it because you're still paying off, right, that handbag? So an emergency expense pops up. And what happens if you can't afford the true emergency at hand because you're still on the hook for payments? And it says, or maybe you qualify for a second buy now, pay later loan, but then you have two giant bills hanging over your head. That's always been my fear for people, is you think, oh, it's just $50 every 2 weeks and that's fine. Mind you, though, there are plenty of people that say I don't have the money to invest even $50 every single month. I start to question that a lot. But let's just say you have $50 every 2 weeks and you now think, oh, well, something else came up and it's only another $50. So now you're on the hook for an extra $100 every 2 weeks. So now we've already bumped that up to an extra $200 every single month. And then if you stack it again, I can promise you there are people that have multiples of these stacked up. And if you're doing it with sneakers, it's nothing for that to still add up now to a $400 expense. And newsflash, you didn't actually have the $400 to start with. Otherwise, you wouldn't have needed to break it up this way versus being able to put it on an actual credit card that can build your credit, provide you points, show great payment history. And I'm not saying some of these services may not do that, but I would personally think the safest way, the best way to do it, and it still comes with some risk of human behavior, would be to put that on a credit card. And if you're in a position where you don't have that, and that's why a lot of people will use buy now, pay later, they don't have the established credit, and I understand that, and the credit game it's a mind game in itself. I totally get that, but please be a responsible individual with your finances and do not get caught up. I still believe what I said in 2019, a sneaker is not worth debt. What the statistic is when it comes to buy now, pay later, before we get out of here real quick. Here's the statistic. I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but people are likely to spend, or almost 70% of consumers that have used buy now, pay later services admit to overspending when using them. 70% overspends. Now, if you have a smaller amount, it's not that crazy. But once you get to a shoe is $200 and you are comfortable doing that, you have a likely chance of spending more. So what if you spend more and that number just starts to creep and creep and creep, and it just seems like such a recipe for disaster? It does. Another thing to consider, you may not have an emergency come up, although this is an emergency. What if you lose your job? What if you lose your job and you still have those payments and you also have rent that you need to pay, put food on the table, gas in your car to go around and hopefully interview for other jobs if you're not working a remote job? You still have to make those payments. You're still obligated to pay those debts. And if you miss a payment, which is very likely to happen, actually 42% of consumers who have used a buy now, pay later service have made at least one late payment according to LendingTree. So it happens. Just like people are late on credit card payments. You're late if you're carrying that balance month to month. You are. I can't stress enough, do not go down this road if you are not financially responsible, sound, and quite honestly, if you have the means to just use a credit card, have the money, have the cash set aside, put it on the card, pay it off in full when it arrives, you have the item, you have good credit history now shown on your report, please don't. I would just personally, it's not a good road for a lot of people to venture down. And, I'll just go ahead and leave you with this before we get out of here. With these loans, overspending is kind of the point, and people don't forget that. Either they forget it's a loan. It really is a loan. It's important for people to understand that just because someone will give you money, it doesn't mean that you should take it or can afford it. People haven't learned this when it comes to housing or auto loans. They don't, a mortgage or auto loan, people treat it the exact same way. They will take out more home than they can afford. They will get a car that they cannot afford also. Those payments are super high. They're having to work just to make the payments. And then the second something happens, they start to default on all of them. And if people start to default, what do you think goes first? Buy now, pay later. So just go ahead and comment your thoughts about the surge of buy now, pay later within sneakers. I'm sure you've seen it all over, and with any retailer that you may shop with. Just please be responsible in how you manage your money. That's always on you. Take care of future you. And as always, act your age, not your shoe size. Peace.